Hey everybody, and welcome to the Experimental Aircraft Channel's podcast, or what we like to call the EAC Aviation Podcast, where we talk to fellow builders, manufacturers, and pilots about experimental, light sport, and ultralight aviation. Be sure to check us out on the web at experimentalaircraftchannel.com. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive right into the aviation conversation. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Experimental Aircraft Channel, and this one's a little special. We're talking to a guy named James Wiebe. In the past, you know him from Belite Aircraft and the Chipper, and some things have happened in the past and some things are about to happen in the future. I just wanted to bring him on and have him kind of out of the horse's mouth explain what is going on. So welcome, James.
I appreciate being here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Merry Christmas and soon to be Happy New Year.
Yes, to you too.
So I'll kind of jump around just a little bit here, but if you could explain at this moment, because you've got a couple different things on the web, Belite Aircraft and then Chipperarrow, what was then and what is now and what is moving forward?
Then, now, moving forward. Got it. Okay. Belite Aircraft was the company name and branding that we used for ever so long of a time. Basically when we were doing nothing but ultralight aircraft. And then at the time that we developed Chipper, we created this two-place design, the Chipper 2, which at that point we started to use the name Chipper to describe our two-place efforts, and Belite was our historical single-place ultralight efforts. That's confusing, and I acknowledge that it's confusing. I've kind of decided that moving forward, everything is going to fall underneath the Chipper brand. I'm still actively using Belite Aircraft out on Facebook, and I'm also using Chipper actively out on Facebook as well. But there really is just one set of efforts moving forward. So I've really focused on Chipper.arrow as the main place to find out about our information. The bad news is that we've just not pulled all the information together yet in one spot, but that will happen given a little bit more time.
Okay, and that's fine. And that's why I wanted to add clarity here for everybody. So if you're searching on the web, you're going to find still beliteaircraft.com, and you've got a couple of different links on that landing page there. But where you want everybody to go moving forward will be chipperarrow.com.
Yep, I just started updating it about a week ago. It's just a mess of broken links and things, but it's coming together. And as we go through into the new year and into the springtime, we'll get it fixed up and looking spiffy.
Perfect. So not to dig up the past, but I know even for myself, there's a few questions of what actually happened. We heard about the fire, obviously. Very sorry to hear about that happened with you and your company. But if you could just a couple minutes explain what happened, what was lost during the fire.
Sure. Well, that was early June of 2019, 2018, 2019. I'm losing track. In any case, my wife and I had settled into bed and were watching TV around 11 o'clock. Got a phone call from the police saying that there'd been a fire at our facility and we needed to come. When we got there, there was around 20 different emergency vehicles surrounding our building, and one quick look inside, as they had mostly wrapped it all up, the entire interior of the building had just been nuked. It was black. The ShopBot CNC machine had been left cutting wood, and it immediately became clear that the dust collector from the CNC machine had caught fire. That was just heartbreaking. We had shipped 4 kits that particular day, but I could instantly see that the world had changed significantly. The outcome of that was that it was a full stop on our operations. There was nothing left to operate with. The work in progress, raw material, some tooling, some samples, just basically everything that was significant to the operation was under that roof, and it was more or less destroyed by it. And unfortunately as well, I was underinsured dramatically. for that particular event. It was a force majeure in terms of the operation. And then I could immediately see that we would have no ability to produce kits physically in any way, and that there was no need to employ people. There was nothing for them to do, and things were just blown up. So it was an incredibly sad and distressing day, and it really marked a turning point personally and professionally for me. It's just heartbroken.
Sure, sure. And a lot of people don't know or don't realize what a small niche business aviation is, especially in manufacturing. So yeah, one little thing goes wrong, it upsets the balance of everything very, very quickly. So just again, for clarity on this, what happened with your CNC machine, and if people aren't familiar with that, oftentimes you can let CNC machines run a program for hours and you can walk
Right.
away from it. And that's what you were doing apparently. But unfortunately, this dust collector built up and something caused a spark or overheated and caused the dust to ignite.
Yeah, we think that the head of the CNC stuck, and then the bit was left there spinning, generating heat, smoke, and flames. It didn't shut down. The guys had worked, I think, late that night. There was a couple of the guys that run the CNC. Ironically, one of the part-time operators that we had just hired to help us was a retired firefighter. So, yeah, so it caught fire. And in hindsight, being perfect, would never allow a CNC machine. We had it running wood, and it would never allow an unattended CNC machine to be running cutting wood. But it live and learn. It was horrible.
Sure, sure. Well, again, I apologize that you've
It's
had
not no problem.
I feel for you that you had to go through that. But let's focus on the future now. So moving forward, which designs are going to be carried forward with your new Chipperarrow.com?
Sure. There's 3 designs being carried forward. Of course, the preeminent design is Chipper 2, the 2-seat stall plane. And then I'm reviving the Chipper Pro Cub and the Ultra Cub. See, I just called it a Chipper Pro Cub instead of a Belite Pro Cub. There's some of that branding coming together. The Pro Cub and the Ultra Cub were really successful. So I'm updating their design so that the Pro Cub and the Ultra Cub are going to look pretty much exactly like a single seat Chipper 2. Every common family appearance, common characteristics. And that's where I'm pouring my effort into right now, supporting Chipper 2. It's been brought back to life via me returning to flight. I've been issuing service bulletins for it, advisories, and so forth. I'm helping my community with that. And I'm letting people know that we're going to have a really sweet ultralight design back on the market here in the springtime as well.
Awesome. Look forward to the reveal of that. I've seen some of the plans you've been sharing on your YouTube channel of the design of that. Looks very nice as well. So are you starting from scratch with tooling on this, or being that most of it's CNC, you just take that program over to a new CNC and there you have production again?
It's kind of both and kind of neither at the same time. Yeah, we are starting over from scratch. The files for the Chipper 2, I've got everything. I've got complete database on that. And so we can take that to the CNC, make parts. Bigger issue related to is supply line issues, especially in this current age where aluminum has shot up in price. And honeycomb is, I believe, substantially more expensive than what it was 3 years ago as well. So I've got to take a look at cost of goods and do cost reduction for Chipper 2 in order to make it the best plane that it can possibly be. And I've got that mindful for all of the production work for the Pro Cub and the Ultra Cub as well. So, bottom line is my shop bot is back up and running. It survived the fire and I ended up with it. So that's pretty cool. I can make flat parts now. We had all of our billet stuff cut outside. That's no big deal. Pricing, of course, will have gone up on aluminum and billet parts as well. I haven't got.
So that's one of the questions I had for you as you move forward. How much will be, especially you're starting over again, kind of, how much will be produced in-house versus third party, which there's nothing wrong with that because a lot of people do it. and most of it is just a program. So how much of it will you do in-house? Is it just the honeycomb, or what will you do in-house?
For the Pro Cub and the Ultra Cub, we expect that I think I'm going to do almost everything in-house. The whole point is with that thing is just like that is effort that I can do in my facility. And for the Chipper 2, I was in the process of moving it out of house at the time that we had the fire. That's another piece of the irony. And now I haven't assessed yet what the right way is to do that. I think that I can't answer that question until we have just a couple more months, a few more months under the road. Certainly by Sun and Fun, I'll have all those things nailed down. It's just too early now for Chipper 2 to figure that one out.
Sure, sure. So which, just to explain to everybody what your aircraft or aircrafts are built from, which materials do you use? Is it all aluminum and then the honeycomb aluminum, or do you have a little bit of wood? Is it epoxy? Explain what the materials are used.
Sure. For Chipper 2, most of the framework was done with honeycomb aluminum, which is phenomenal. It saved my life when I had my accident up in Alaska back in 2018. And then, of course, it uses aluminum metal skins, aluminum gussets. There's a tiny bit of wood in it, but mostly just aluminum, honeycomb aluminum. For Pro Cub and Ultra Cub, it's the same way as well. It's all aluminum, bits and pieces of honeycomb aluminum, used scantily because it's expensive, combined with aluminum skins and so forth to make it easy to build and durable. I'm wood. Oh, people love wood, and I just haven't been able to reconcile, the purity of using wood versus the ability to just use a little bit of it. That sounds confusing. But the bottom line is that I'm building my reputation now with aluminum and honeycomb aluminum as the base technology. And it's put together with just rivets and glue, bonding. And I know how to do that. So, we've got some stuff figured out, and it's a great way to build an airplane.
Well, that's why I want to move right into the construction of it. So, yeah, what is it just pop rivets and epoxy essentially what you need to assemble this?
Yeah, now pop rivet sounds cheap, but it's used in so many airplanes. The real secret sauce when you're putting together an airplane using a combination of aluminum and honeycomb and aluminum is learning, first of all, that the best way to do it is to bond all of your lines with epoxy. And of course, surface treatment is so important when you're doing that, cleaning, roughing and cleaning. And then bonding along the seam line with epoxy, following that up with rivets. The idea then is that you're using the epoxy to create this incredible, shear tension, and then you're using the rivets to keep the whole assembly together over the life of the airframe. Honeycomb aluminum, after all, is used throughout the aviation industry and has been for decades. It's in everything that we fly commercially, and I suspect it's in every single business jet, and it's made its way into a few general aviation aircraft as well.
I was going to say, in the past, I owned a Grumman, a Yankee,
Cool.
and that
I
was
have
built.
some time in a Cheetah. So
okay, yeah, a little two-seater Yankee, and that was built with that. So if anybody ever wanted to repaint, we had to have a very specific process that you didn't chemically strip the paint and affect the bonding agent of the epoxy.
Yeah, that's right.
So if somebody were to get one of these kits, where would a builder start? A lot of companies offer a tail kit just to get your feet wet in the assembly parts, but where would you start with one of the Chipper?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? I wish I had a better answer to it. We're going to start with an airframe kit for Chipper 2. The airframe kit's going to get you everything that you need, short of CNC cut material, short of billet materials to put the plane together. And it's pretty much going to be the same way for Pro Cub and Ultra Cub as well. That's where things diverge. For the ultralights, there's not a whole lot of additional machine parts required to make the thing fly, if any. But for the Chipper 2, then we follow up with what's called a finishing kit. And one of the things that I'm looking to do to reduce costs, because, safety's first, but cost is number 2. And then everything else follows after safety and cost. the thing that I want to do is supply these kits and then have us not do the kitting of the nuts and bolts and rivets. We used to do that. And it was really a value add feature. But since I'm starting over and there's just one of me for the time being, it makes more sense just to publish the list and then have the buyer produce those, have the builder procure those things from Aircraft Spruce or wherever, where you can have a published list. And I don't have to charge any handling for that.
So you essentially just create a materials list, which
Exactly. And that's the course that a lot of the kit companies have followed. Of course, you know, others do more complete, but you have to judge what it is that you can do in order to reduce costs and make it easy at the same time for the builder.
And then honestly, once you get your materials list created, it's probably a fairly simple conversation with like Wix Aircraft or Aircraft Spruce for them to create a line item of their own kit. And then they've got that already, so they can just order it straight from there versus trying to one by one get quantities of such.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Wix and Aircraft Spruce would be the go-to places to get that done.
Yeah, I've worked with both of them. Good companies, good people. So once somebody did receive the kit, would you have any recommendation again of like where to start, just to get, you know, a little bit going on here? I mean, you obviously built several. What would be let's just narrow it down. What is the simplest assembly you could possibly start with in one of your kits?
Oh,
that's probably a good starting point.
Let's go with the cabin.
You can dive right into the cabin, huh?
Right into the cabin.
Okay.
Because everything fits together. It's Legos, man. Aluminum pieces go together. Put those Clecos in there, and I would say within the first day, at the end of 8 hours, you know, assuming you have some familiarity and you've done your homework, in a work day, you can have something that kind of looks like a cabin. You know?
I was going to say that your kit must be one of the most rewarding kits if you can actually start with the cabin, because it literally jumps off of the page, jumps off of the table.
Yeah.
And you have something that looks like an airplane within the first weekend of working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, oh man, I'm working so hard on that, trying to make it easy for people to put together. And so I do want, people have to have the satisfaction of getting feedback from what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know?
So what will be the bare minimalist tools that you would need to buy to start building one of your kits?
Well, everything, all hand tools. Let's just check all the obvious hand tools. You're going to have screwdrivers and Clecos and Cleco pliers and all that good stuff and drills. So what you're really asking is, what unusual tools are required to work with my thing? About the only thing that I would call out is a shear and a brake. And, you know, the shear and the brake are used for cutting off edges of parts and then bending them over to the correct level. I'm kind of thinking here, you know, I'm early in the reboot here. Is that absolutely necessary? I'm not sure that it is. But
what size? Like the hobbyists, like a 24-inch or 36? Like how big of a?
36 inch. And, you know, that's these days from Harbor Freight and the like, I think that's about a $300 investment, maybe less, maybe more.
Right about there. Sure.
Yeah. So no, nothing exotic whatsoever. I don't like putting builders in the position where they have to have something. Now there's places where you get in the build where, for instance, you need to close some collars around some cable and you need to have a great big, you know, but hopefully you can borrow stuff like that. You know, senior moment here, when you want to press down a thing around a cable sleeve, sure. And you want to have a good press for that. So there's always a need for some tools that are a little out there, but nothing terribly exotic.
So what would your estimate be to build? Let's just talk about the metalwork, the airframe itself, not the engine and instruments and paint, because that can be infinite, but just to assemble the airframe, what would be the hour investment, you think?
Chipper 2 airframe, 600 hours.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, well, that's taking advantage of that honeycomb. The entire rear fuselage, every former comes as an individual piece. The wing construction is probably identical procedure-wise to any other metal aircraft, but the cabin and the fuselage are going to build ahead of schedule. The tail feathers are easier because they're made out of honeycomb aluminum as well. So you're starting with a single piece and just finishing it out.
Now, is this all 2024 or 6061 T6 or a mix?
It's a mix. We used a lot of 2024 T3 and a lot of 6061 as well. The skins were 2024 T3, but 6061 is everywhere else. Then we used 7075 T6 just in the landing gear. Oh my gosh, those are enormously strong.
Is the honeycomb the 6061?
It's 2024.
Okay.
The skins on it are 2024 T3.
So that being said, I know 6061 T6, the reason why it's used most of the time is because of its qualities to resist in corrosion.
Correct.
2024 is slightly stronger, but has the ability to corrode a little bit quicker. Hence,
which
most
usually
people
means it's alclad as a result.
So is there anything that you would need to do specifically, especially this honeycomb, to protect it from corrosion?
No. I always recommend corrosion treatment though, spraying it. But now with some history with my particular plane, there's no corrosion occurring on it. The 2024 that's used as part of the process, all of our metal skins are all alclad as well. And the interior of the wing, I have an example up at the shop there where we built one particular wing 3 years ago, and it's just sitting there. But we did cover it completely with aluminum primer in order to prevent it from corroding over the long term. And that's what I'd recommend doing. Spraying the structure with either a primer or a sealant before you seal it up.
Okay, which is quite typical of any airframe construction for the most part. And some people living up in the Midwest or Northern territories don't bother with it so much because it's, or Western, it's so dry. I'm in Florida, so pretty much anything that can possibly corrode, we seal because of the humidity and vicinity to proximity to the ocean and so forth. All right, so let's move into the engine real quickly. So on each airframe, obviously you've got the Part 103, which is extremely light, and then you've got the Chipper 2. So which engines are you going to be using for the kit, suggesting at least?
I've got 3 that I suggest. I haven't paid much attention to Aero Momentum, but I'm going to put a shout out to them because I have a number of builders using their product, and it looks like a good combination price-wise and performance-wise. I'm flying with the UL Power, and I'm in love with my 350 IS engine, which is rated for up to 130 horsepower. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Turn the key, starts like a car. Everything's computerized. That is, there's no mixture control, fuel injected. The third engine is the classic Rotax. Back in the early days of Chipper 2, I demonstrated how phenomenal the performance of a 2-seat airplane was with a passenger with an 80 horsepower engine. I mean, the thing just performs really, really well. So Rotax, UL Power, and Aero Momentum is where I'm putting my effort. I would pay attention to Viking if I had a builder that was using them. Don't currently have a builder doing anything with Viking that I'm aware of, but they seem like they might have a good product as well.
So that being said, the 350 IS, I believe, is 130 horsepower at 3,300 RPM.
33.
But if you're running a bigger prop for STOL and also for ground clearance issues, well, you're not going to get 3,300 RPM out of a STOL aircraft, right? So you're going to be closer to probably 28, 29, maybe even 3, which means you have to have a smaller prop. So your 350 IS, 130 horsepower, I think Zenith, let's use them as an example, did a really good intense testing with Sensenich and UL Power and different prop lengths and so forth. So you could, and correct me if I'm wrong, go with their 118 horsepower and probably have roughly the same horsepower. I think that's closer to 2,900 RPM.
I think you've got it figured out. You're just dead on. First of all, 3,300 is the red line for 130 horsepower. I've noted a time or two that I'm not running 3,300. I'm pitched for around 2,800 on the ground.
Okay.
And then going to the chart at sea level, that would produce me around 115 horsepower. So I'm really running with about 115 horsepower rig. I think I'm running a Sensenik prop as well, a 2-blade. I would love to be running with a 3-blade. That would improve my ground clearance, but I'm not. So there's a wonderful play space there with RPMs, props, and decisions that I'm in. Now, if I got to a stall competition, my dream is to switch over to a 3-blade prop and then repitch for 3,300 RPM, 3,200 RPM.
Sure.
The UL power it'll automatically RPM limit at 3,300 RPM. You want it so that just as you're accelerating, you're hitting that maximum power.
Sure.
But the flip side is I don't think my prop is actually rated for usage at 3,300 RPM for any length of time. I mean, I'm in a box right now of my own making.
Yeah.
And it's a good box. I'm getting great performance.
Sure. Yeah, I was just curious because it's a little bit more for the 350 IS 130 horsepower. And if you're not actually utilizing all of it, you could probably go with the slightly lesser cost of the 118 horse engine.
Correct.
But that being said, UL is a good option. I mean, power to weight ratio, they're doing very well. So they're matching up to, especially with these light sport aircraft, as a great option. I think Jabiru would probably be another one to look at, which is a similar weight, but it is still heavier of an engine, of course, and that's, I believe, carbureted, whereas UL power is fully FADEC and fuel injected. But you mentioned several engines here, including maybe an Aero Momentum or maybe a Viking. So we're talking about a good range of a weight class of engine, which means your firewall forward, you must have a little bit of leniency there to be able to accept such engines. So what would be the max firewall forward installation weight? Because as an engineer designing that, that's probably really where your box ends, right?
Yeah,
you can only put so much ballast in the tail to counter that, and it starts affecting your flight characteristics.
Right. Well, so the first answer is I should know the exact answer to your question, and I don't. Haven't studied the numbers closely in 3 years, but my firewall weight forward right now is probably about 200 to 210. The engine is around, what is it, 160, 165. The prop's pretty heavy. We still have an engine mount. We've got a lot of hardware there hanging on the firewall. Those fuel pumps are heavy, and the cowl is, it weighs 8 or 10 pounds as well. So I'm probably sitting around 200, 210 currently. From my feeling on the plane is that CG wise, we could certainly add another 50 pounds forward and another 5 pounds aft and still, pull off the CG thing. So I don't see a problem really with CG.
Okay.
So
and that's an interesting thing there too, because people don't realize when you're talking about arm moments and weight, right? You think like, well, how can I add 50 pounds? I have a pen here. How can I add 50 pounds here and then only add 5 pounds here? Well, because your CG is somewhere in the middle, and that arm is so long that your 5 pounds acts like 50, right?
Yeah. The other answer to the question is that I want to do more exploration of the center of the control envelope for Chipper 2, and I've just not had a chance to do that. When I say the control envelope, I'm not referring to the CG envelope. I'm referring to the true control envelope, where the center of pressure is still ahead or behind the center of gravity. And that does not relate to the 25% on the wing chord. Do you follow what I'm saying? So I've got a great aeronautical
you feel welcome to feel free to expand on that if you want. I love this stuff.
Yeah. So in other words, the CG envelope is you want your operable, controllable area to be bigger than the CG envelope. How much further behind the CG can you get? How much can you move that around and still be able to have enough elevator effect to safely land the airplane and do those things? That's on a CG forward. And then on the CG back, if you get it too far back on the CG envelope, what's going to happen then is you're going to lose positive stability. So in other words, you're going to be doing a mental fly-by-wire continuously to keep the plane flying. You can experience the same thing for grins and nearly kill yourself by putting your horizontal stabilizer into the wrong trim. And as a result, you have to constantly be putting force into the airplane. And if you let go, the plane goes to immediate stall, or if you have it trimmed the other way, it goes into an accelerating dive. So all that's associated with playing with your, determining where your center of pressure is on the airplane, and matching up the CG. And that is a portion of the bigger answer as to how heavy can you go and what do you really need to do balance.
Because that the more weight, then all of a sudden it starts affecting your stability. And
yeah, this is fun stuff. This is
your control, your cross country flying diminishes as far as the enjoyment of it, I assume.
Yeah, if you're constantly doing control inputs, that's no fun at all. I speak from a little personal experience there. I did an intentional misrig on my elevator, and I had no idea what moving the leading edge of my elevator by 7/8 of an inch would do. And it was just phenomenal how it changed the characteristics of the airplane when I misrigged it. Went around the pattern once, and it's kind of like, well, check that off the list. That was not a whole lot of fun because I had to maintain so much stick force to keep it flying. And if I let go, it was going to go to a diverging point of view pretty quickly.
Sure. Let's not do that again, huh?
No. So
before I get
stuff though.
Before I get too far away from, I do want to ask, so you could share here, what is going to be the price point for both the experimental Chipper 2 and then moving forward for the ultralight, so people can get an idea? And we're talking about December 2021 at this moment. Things change, especially the price of aluminum these days.
Did you see my eyes pop out when you said price point? You will when you go back and look at the video. I hate to talk about price point because as soon as I quote a number, people either love me or hate me. So if I quote a low number, the buyers love me, but my wife hates me. If I quote a high number, it just flips around the other way.
Okay.
I don't know the price points. I am painfully aware of what the price points were when we went out of business. So I'm not prepared to give a price point. I'm sorry.
Okay. But early on in 2022, you are planning to start production and shipping, correct? So the next quarter,
the
we'll have
price
updates.
Points will be out in the next quarter. Okay. They will be out in March.
Okay. Well, we look forward to that. And will you what are the next shows that you'll be at for 2022? Which places are you going to be attending this year?
Skipping Copper State, I've never been there. That would be an obvious place. I'm just not ready to go. Sun and Fun. Let's go to Sun and Fun and have some fun.
Okay.
That's April 5, I believe. And then, God willing, I am planning to go to Alaska at the end of April and be up there for the Alaska Airman Show.
Wow.
And also to the Valdez competition.
Wow. Okay. Big goals.
That's a big deal. Going up there, I want to go visit the place where I wrecked my plane. And I need to do some stuff in Alaska. It's really important for me.
So for those, not to focus on anything negative for too long, because we're here to promote aviation, but 5 minutes, because I'm not really aware of the details. What happened in Alaska when you crashed the plane?
The engine quit. It's really pretty simple.
Okay.
I was climbing out.
End of story.
Just climbing out from Lake Hood and 150 feet off the ground. I was doing an intentional go around on a pattern. It was a test flight. We'd been doing a lot of work on the engine and the fuel system, and the engine quit. It's a weird thing about accidents in aviation. There I was, tower, engine quit, going down, cleared to land. Couldn't get the plane stopped by the end of the runway. Runway ended in a chain link fence, bounced over the fence, hit the fence, ended up upside down in a marshy bog, dead stop, 345 feet off the end of the runway.
Wow.
Hung there upside down, heard the sirens, and I thought to myself, they're coming for me. Established that the structure of my aircraft was incredibly strong. Everything held together beautifully. Came out of it with a couple of scratches. I walked away from a full stop aviation accident, really uninjured, and learned to have a great deal of respect for the choices that I was making in terms of how I do engine, how I do fuel, and so forth.
Sure, sure. Well, happy
So
that you are able to walk away from that
yeah,
and
it all
a
turned
few
out okay.
scratches. Yeah, and lessons learned. What ended up being the issue with the engine stoppage?
Well, there's an NTSB report out on it. And the NTSB report, how to say this, uh, the engine quit because of fuel issues.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that. And you can go out there to my blog. You can read all the analysis of the NTSB report. It's there.
Okay.
So, you know, that's sensitive territory.
Understand. So you're gonna go out to Sun and Fun. You're gonna go to Alaska. That's the big target. Are you gonna try to make Osh as well this year,
Oh, of
or?
course. You
Okay.
just, you rolled the list up right there.
Okay.
Of course, I'll be at Oshkosh. I'm looking forward to being there. And I've got so many friends in aviation, most of whom I've not seen in 3 years. So I'm wanting to be there.
Nice. And being that you've been around this industry for several years before you had to stop for a little bit, what has been because I want to focus on some smaller venues moving forward. Obviously Oshkosh is great, but the footprint has gotten so large. I mean, and unfortunately it's separated some of the things that I want to see, like the ultralight field is 7,000 feet away from the experimental fields as an example, and you have to take a bus or a tractor or something to get down there, right? What has been your experience with some of the smaller venues, maybe at your local airport, and getting people out to introduce them to aviation? I'm taking notes.
Midwest, I believe there's one in, where is it, Illinois, the Midwest Aviation. It's usually been in October.
Light
And
Sport
that's
Aviation Expo. Yeah.
That's it. Love that one. I haven't been into a lot of the small venues, but that'll be my prime example. It was a good crowd. What happens at a place like that is that you really have an opportunity to go flying with people.
Okay.
And you instead of performing before thousands, you get to connect with people one-on-one. You have time to talk. It was just a great experience. Oh, I've been to Florida. Speaking of Florida, I've been to what's the first show of the year in January.
Well, they moved it around, but DeLand.
Yeah, before it was at DeLand. I've attended that one several times. In fact, Sebring, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, it's now at DeLand. I haven't been to DeLand, but I did Sebring, and I really enjoyed that as well. A smaller show, and that's where I originally introduced Chipper to the world. Chipper 2. I remember a reporter, an editor from EAA, kind of tackling me to make sure that he could talk about it. So small shows are really, really important. I think one of the things too that's happened in COVID is that there's a desire for people to come together more locally, fly-in wise.
Regional stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, regional stuff. So I'm all for it. Give me opportunity, and I'd like to have a chance to be there.
Okay. Because I'm trying to get some things in the works for Florida and the Panhandle here next year. So I just want to get some feedback from your experiences. Might have some very focused fly-ins, whether it's like a tail wheel fly-in or very specific to an airframe or whatnot, but something every month, probably starting in February. Foxtrot 95, Calhoun County, my little airport here in the Panhandle. All right. So what else did I want to ask you today? Where you've been posting some stuff on your YouTube channel there and on Facebook. Will you be continuing that route with communicating what's going on and growing your followers there?
Well, one thing that's improved in the course of the last 3 years is that my impression is that we're communicating with each other well through social media, just like we're doing here. Facebook, I'm so active on Facebook. I try to post every day somewhere. I'm posting on 3 or 4 different groups. I'm doing my own thing on Chipper Builder. I'm still maintaining Belite Aircraft as well. I post, and then Facebook, YouTube. I'm posting content on YouTube. I'm trying to follow in your footsteps. I'm doing a video blog of sorts. I've just posted my 3rd episode of that. And so far I've just been focused on providing details as to how I do design, but I want to have some guests too for that as well. I love the way that you can track the analytics. I'm sure you do this too. It's going back in and looking as to who came and saw what you're doing, where did they come from,
Demographics. Yeah.
Demographics, getting chances to understand who and how you're connecting with people, what they want to hear. But I'm doing it all. I did a Patreon as well. I've had a lot of, that's been off to a great start. There's another one out there, I think it's Dark Arrow, that they've been doing a lot of stuff related to content generation, and they've been booting an aircraft company using lots of these same paths. So I figured, what the heck, always a chance to learn how to do something new. So let's do it. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm using every available means to try and connect with people in aviation.
You and I are on the same ship here. So where just so to easily find that, where are you on Facebook, on YouTube, and other social media platforms? Just under Belite or Chipper
hard.
or?
Yeah, Chipper Builder is a great place to start. Okay. And from there on Facebook, you can branch out to Microlight and Ultralight, which is a great group that's hosted out of England. Then over on YouTube, you can find me by searching Belite Aircraft or Chipper or Radiant Instruments. On Patreon, it's just my name, James Wiebe. You have to spell it right. My blog, I've been doing blog content every week or so. That's tough, having the discipline to write. And when you're busy like you are doing your stuff, but I do post on jameswiebeblogspot.com, which is called the Standard Pilot Blog, BLOG, which is a play on the old logbook, the Standard Pilot Log. I have the Standard Pilot Blog.
Okay.
So lots of ways to find me.
Yeah, I honestly hate writing
Chipper.arrow.
Chipper.arrow. Okay.
I honestly, those will all be linked from the website too. There's a concept.
Yeah, I personally don't really like to write myself either. That's why I say it with video as much as possible, because it's much easier just to record it and show it in video than anything else. I'm a visual learner, so it's helpful to see things. So thanks for taking a little bit of your morning with us today to share what's going on in your life and your world here, and very excited for you to get back into this, and I'm excited to see what's going to come out of your new production facility moving forward, and how many new people will be getting into the air here shortly. So thanks for sharing all that information. And guys, I'll put up a couple of links so you can follow this stuff or write it down or whatnot in the description below this video. I'll put some links as well. So thanks, James. And I'll have to have you on again in the future after March so we can get some pricing information and see you in full production and just do a follow-up on where you're at.
And you've got a big invite to come visit my facility anytime.
Where is that located again? So just
Wichita, Kansas, air capital of the world. There's a lot of stuff to aviation wise to do here.
Awesome.
Kansas Air and Space Museum, the Kansas Aviation Museum. Anyone comes to Wichita, let me know ahead. I'd love to show you where it is that I do this stuff. I've got a really neat location out at an airport and a well cleaned up shop that's going to work.
An aircraft manufacturer that's actually based at an airport. How about that?
It's the way it is.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for downloading and listening to our podcast today. Hopefully you built something in your garage or hangar while listening. That's it for us today here on the EAC Aviation Podcast. I'm out.